AITA for not giving my husband's mistress some of my dead husband's last paycheck. Buckle up guys, this is gonna be a bumpy ride straight out of a soap opera. My husband worked in the oil industry and it took him overseas, often to a foreign country that allows men to marry multiple women in the prevalent religion of that country. And apparently that's what he decided to do, but of course he neglected to tell me. So when someone anonymously sent me an email telling me to look at a Facebook profile, what do I see? My husband with another woman. Of course he denied it, but come on, there were freaking pictures. Told him I wanted a divorce while was still overseas, so I packed up our rental house, threw his shit away and moved, leaving no forwarding address. Then the bastard up and died on me before our divorce was final, and he hadn't collected the last of his paycheck from the company he was working for, so I emailed them and that's when they told me the money would be split between me and the mistress. I of course said no, that every penny was mine as his legal widow, and I expected them to give me every penny owed to my husband. They then told me they had already given the mistress some of the money. I told them they were just sol. Yes, I was a bit more diplomatic than that, and I expected every penny to be sent to my address. In the meantime, before they had done anything, the mistress contacted me via Facebook to harass me. She asked me for money. She told me my husband didn't love me. Just a barrage of insults. I blocked her. Finally the company got back with me and sent me all the money, even the money that had given the mistress. Apparently they made her give them money back because I started receiving messages from the mistress's teenage daughter that they needed the money and that I took it from them. She told me they were going to be homeless. I didn't budge. I didn't give them any money. This is a country that rent averages about $200 a month, so taking back several grand is a huge deal to them, but I also feel I have no obligation to that woman or her children. So Reddit community was INR. To this day I'm not sure who sent me that email. My husband said it was another woman with whom he was having an affair because she was mad he dumped her for this mistress. I did warn you all this was gonna sound like a soap opera. The not the arsehole responses. I'm leaning towards NTA because you don't owe his mistress or her teenage children anything. How do you even prove official mistress status? Did your husband specify what he wanted to leave in his will? There was no will. Yeah, you're NTA. The money is legally yours and it's not your responsibility to financially care for his bad decisions, especially if he left you in debt. His mistress and her daughter should have had a backup plan to take care of themselves, not just preying upon people's husbands. Exactly, the money is legally ours. Sounds like in the mistress's mind and country, she was a second legal wife. OP said that the mistress only had a religious ceremony, so was not legally married. Honestly, that's probably why the company backtracked and asked for the money back from the mistress. That makes a lot of sense actually. These marriages often screw over the wife and kids legally because they have no legal rights. I guess you shouldn't marry a man you already know is married, have kids with that person and expect to come out on top with no will. I am not trying to be Judy, but this woman knew what she wants us doing. She had no problem screwing the OP by screwing her husband. She has no problem insulting and harassing the OP. This mistress sounds toxic. It isn't like she should be surprised. She probably lied to the company in the first place. This isn't a completely fair assessment, I think. These marriages often have a huge power imbalance, as in usually the woman and her family would be very poor, often a minor herself, and lacking in education. So they'd have a common law marriage, get a nice dowry and be completely unaware the law would consider the children illegitimate and the wife not a wife at all. As far as they're concerned, the marriage is acceptable in their community and 100% halal, so they're shocked the law treats them as bastards adulterers. I'm guessing that's the headscape the mistress is in right now. She's a wife being cheated out her marital rights by the other wife. If she gets pregnant from this, establishing paternity legitimacy of the baby is gonna be an uphill battle too. She has a teenage daughter and moved right on to the next man. This isn't a naive teenager in a bad relationship. She is resourceful enough to duty and harass the OP. She isn't incapable. I understand she likely faced lots of hardships, but there are plenty of people in those positions who wouldn't act like a complete monster. So she's not young. She is still in a culture where multiple wives is normal and, probably, still poor. Also, probably, unskilled given that she's in a culture where women are wives and rarely anything else. She's not even acting like a monster. She's acting like a widow. Trying to get what she can from a stranger her husband probably told her he doesn't love. Agreed. And this stranger is the first wife who initiated a divorce against their mutual husband, but now wants to live off of his death money. To her Arp's actions would come off as plain evil. They're probably poor as fuck, dude. OP was right to get back the money, and I'm not proclaiming the mistress world's greatest woman, but it's extremely easy for you to judge from afar. They're probably in chronic poverty. Then maybe the mistress shouldn't have come and swinging at OP on Facebook then. Yay, telling her that her husband didn't love her and stuff. Makes the mistress most definitely an asshole who doesn't deserve a cent. Kind of do feel bad for the daughter. But yeah, mistress was a complete asshole. Obviously. The husband too. NTAOP. Yay, telling her that her husband didn't love her and stuff. She didn't love him. She was actively divorcing him. OP presenting themselves as a widow is completely manipulative. Words have meanings beyond their technical definition. She wanted a divorce because she found out he was cheating on her overseas, and he tried to deny it when the wife confronted him about it. Then he ended up dying before the divorce was final. That doesn't mean she never loved him, but obviously that's not a healthy relationship to stay in. I think that she can rightfully consider herself a widow. WTF kind of Western bias is this? In the second wife's perspective, OP is a woman who hated their husband so much that she decided to initiate divorce, then has the audacity to benefit from their husband's death by inheriting his assets that she was happy to destroy while he was alive, and try to steal what she feels should be her rightful share. The only asshole in this situation is the dead husband. Both wives are acting in accordance with the customs of their culture, though it's likely that OP has had far more liberty and access to accusation than wife number 2. And OP is misrepresenting herself when she calls herself a widow because she is a widow on a legal technicality as she was actively divorcing him. If the husband was an American citizen, legally he could only have one wife. Are you allowed to go to another country and get married again just because the new country allows multiple marriages? Mistress, whoever she is, and teenage daughter are out of luck. There have been cases of refugees who could only declare one wife when coming to an European country, even if they are legally married to 2 women in their country. So probably if he was an American citizen and already married there, if they had a second legal marriage it would be illegal. Not a lawyer though. This happened to my husband's family when they came from Vietnam. His aunt was the second wife, but her husband could only bring the first wife to America. She wasn't able to come to the US and ended up in Switzerland alone while the entire rest of her family went to the US. According to Indonesian law they were married. A religious ceremony is all that is required from what I can see online. The marriage just isn't accepted outside the country. Nah, it's a bit more complicated than that. I'm an American and got legally married in Indonesia. It was a pain in the ass but still one of the easier countries to get legally married in as an expat. My wife and I both had to get documents from our embassies showing we were upright citizens and not previously married, or if we were previously married that the marriage was legally dissolved. We then had to declare legally that we were one of 3 religions. After the marriage we had to then get the paperwork stamped by some government agency, then have them translated and certified by our respective embassies. Then and only then were we legally married. This applies to all foreigners getting married in Indonesia. Having said that, the divorce process is ridiculously simple. NTA, it's legally yours, and the fact that his company would support this affair baffles me. Can't really believe this is true. I don't blame you for thinking this is some off the wall story. Hell, half the time even I don't believe it. The man who owns the company is not American, though he does have a nice house about 5 miles from Disneyland. He also has multiple mistresses in several countries. Also, from what I've heard from multiple sources, it's not uncommon for oil guys who travel for work to have mistresses. I believe it happened to my friend. Those guys who work overseas in poorer countries get local wives all the time. They're just a meal ticket and then they bring the STDs to the wife. The wife back home is just the housekeeper, childminder. Info. Did his mistress know about you when she was with him? NTA, either way I'm just nosy. Yes, she knew about me. Hell, she even knew he was sleeping with her best friend and decided to sleep with him knowing that. She sounds classy, yes. TBH though, a religious marriage is enough in some countries for that person to be classed as his wife. If the company is based in a country where it's normal for men to have multiple wives, it's possible their company rules are that, say, 70% of death in service money goes to the primary wife and the rest to the secondary wife, especially if that's the laws in the country they're based in. I mean, from what you've said it doesn't sound like he was the only man in his company doing this, which is, gross. Some countries have that as their culture, sure, but in general the wives are aware of each other, and they don't tend to let the husband play hide the sausage with their friends either. And your husband was American. It wasn't his culture to have 2 wives. Your NTA so much. I can't believe the cheek of her and her daughter. I can't believe your husband. Well, maybe I can because men being trash isn't news. I just hope you're okay. You deserve that money. Go spend it on diamonds and furs and become a cougar with a hot younger guy. It's your turn to have some fun. NTA. Everyone else sucks here. Can I ask what happened to him?
He overdosed. Intentionally.
Oh shit. How do you know it was intentional? That's intense. He flat out told everyone he wanted to drink himself to death, and the months leading up to his death he drank so heavily that I'm surprised it took as long as it did to kill him. Did he say why? Number. He was an addict though and was spiraling out of control. Info. You said foreign country that allows men to marry multiple women. Was he legally married to this mistress? OP also says that the company was foreign too, so their marriage wouldn't have to be legally binding by US standards. Is the company based in USA? Was his money coming from the US based company or the foreign one? It's complicated, especially if the mistress is his wife. Sounds like the entire company was overseas with no base in the US. It's a foreign company. I doubt US laws can touch them. Still, mistress gets 0. Religious ceremony doesn't matter without official marriage certificate. Some countries don't require a marriage certificate. If that's the case, and they got married religiously, then esh. The you're the arsehole responses. AITA. If it was a mistress, then you're fine. However, the part of the world she lives in allows plural marriages. She is also his wife and widow, whether you like it or not. Furthermore, it's not her fault that he didn't tell you do the right thing. For all you know, he could have been lying to her the whole time as well. She is entitled to the money, just the same as you are. Your husband was the real problem, not her. This is, of course, depending on the fact that they are married, and it's all legal. Otherwise, screw her. Edit. So I just did a quick look at US law and found the following. He is not guilty of bigamy because he did not file for another US marriage license. He is not a member of a culture or religion that practices polygyny. As far as we know, the law is written such that a polygamist doesn't even have to be married to their secondary and tertiary partners, merely living with them. US law recognizes those secondary and further marriages, and prevents people from immigrating, not visiting, but immigrating. If they practice polygyny, as a US citizen, he is bound by US law, even when abroad. This is kind of a gray area, because he didn't apply for a US marriage license, so didn't technically break any law. The bottom line is, the lady is a valid and legal spouse of your husband, and entitled to all benefits from such. She was not legally married to OP's husband. OP said a country that allows marriage to multiple women, and that's exactly what he did. Oh, what OP is not very consistent about this. In a comment above she said no 3. Yeah, she obviously knows. If people know this, then she's the asshole. Leaning towards AITA. You were divorcing him. If he had died the day after your divorce was final, you would have gotten nothing. You were done with him. Threw all his stuff away. Didn't want his stuff. Want that $sign though. Had he died without you knowing anything about the other woman, then I would have a different opinion. Oh my god, AITA. Not only are you legally no more entitled to the money than her, but she has a literal child, and you're going to let her daughter starve and live on the streets because you're mad at her mom? It doesn't matter what this woman is like as a person or what her role in your life is. Yes, she's an asshole, but cheating is trivial compared to guiltlessly allowing a teenager to be homeless in a country that makes an average of $200. Put your anger toward the mom aside for a second and realize that a child could die if you don't give up some of this money. You aren't obligated to help them, but just think for a moment about the harm you could cause here. Take a step back and consider whether it's worth your pride. While I think OP has every reason to keep the money, it also wouldn't impact her much to give some of it over, other than, as you said, damage her pride, and the money the lady would receive could literally change her life forever. Plus the husband was legally married to the lady in that country, which honestly is enough to receive some of that paycheck. Either way, I can totally understand if OP keeps all the money for herself. You're asking if you're an asshole for this, not if it's legal. You're legally right, but to know what the money could do for that kid and knowing how much it's worth when you never mentioned needing it is terrible. If it was as just the mistress I'd get it, but to fuck with the kid out of spite is terrible. The teen did nothing wrong. If the daughter isn't exaggerating about the homeless thing, then OP is a major asshole. She said it herself. Rent is $200 a month and a few thousand would make a huge difference to them. She says this like she can spare the money but simply won't out of pure spite. Fucking over the kid in the middle of a fucking pandemic makes her the whole damn colon. I'm gonna go against everyone and say AITA because he was married to this woman. She wasn't a mistress, she was his wife. Fair enough, it wasn't legal, but that doesn't make it any less of a marriage. At the time of his death you were filing for divorce, meaning you were separated. All you needed was that piece of paper to say you're not married anymore, so technically in heart and mind you were single but legally still married. At the time of his death he was still married to his second wife. Yes, you hold legal power since US operates in this way, but I honestly think you're being selfish. You might be hurt and you were betrayed, but he were about to be his ex-wife. I think you're acting from a place of bitterness, anger and resentment, and rightly so, but AITA. Not a popular opinion, but I think you're right. I agree. Not like this lady can go on a cruise tomorrow. It's petty and vindictive. For several grand she gets to walk away having given another woman a golden ticket to another life, while feeling morally superior, collecting his estate, and being able to shit on his dead body for eternity. And the random everyone sucks response. I can't find one person in this story that doesn't suck. Why does OP suck? She got lied to and cheated on and then got harassed by her ex-husband's mistress. How is she the bad guy here? She deliberately stopped the other mistress wife from getting money the company had dispensed to them, even though it would change their lives forever.
Baby, walk through, but he knows.